All right, hi everybody. I want to now take this conversation about multiple forms to sort of another level, not really that much more of a level, but just a little bit more of a level, and kind of show you, instead of the simple thing we did with our initial example, how you can make an application, a multiple form application, and what one might look like. Again, multiple form applications can look like several things. It could be forms from 2 forms, 3 forms, 10 forms, 20 forms, 50 forms, 100 forms, based upon how the complexity of the application. If you remember VB Auto Center, hopefully you do because we cover it every week. Our last thing we did with VB Auto Center is we got in here and we, took everything, modularized it. We added functions to it where we need to add functions. I think they're down here somewhere. Here we go, my functions here to return back everything, okay? And so this was the latest rendition of that. Let's just say the VB Auto Center people came to me and said, Bob, we really like what you've done here, but we're now starting a leasing program. Because everything up to this point was purchasing. Now we're starting a leasing program, and we want to be able to ask the customer when they walk in the door, what do they actually want? Okay, do they want to purchase or do they want to lease? And based upon that, we want to help them, determine how much things are going to cost. And so I updated this piece here, my multiple form application, such as this, where you would walk in the door and you would tell your salesman what you want to do. You know, if I want to purchase a car, this form would pop up, and I would say, okay, I want these things, and I got a $10,000 base price, and I got a $1,000 trade-in allowance, and boom, this is how much it costs. That all looks good, correct? Notice how this works. Once again, it's going to be a show dialogue because I want them to complete this whole thing or exit out of it before I do anything else. All right. So I exit here. That looks good. And say, well, let's look at it from a lease point of view. Again, my leasing calculations, I shouldn't say again here, but my leasing calculations in this particular program are not very sophisticated. So just kind of bear with me. This is for example. And so this form, though similar, is a little bit different. And it could be completely different based upon your application and what you're doing. But in this case, it's similar. You can sit back and you can pick leather, pearlized, but then the difference is you got to tell me what kind of lease terms you want. And so once again, you would have the price and maybe a trade-in, and you would calculate, and it would end up with a monthly payment. Again, I didn't do anything overly sophisticated to come up with a monthly payment, so don't look for anything extraordinary there. And so here's a nice little application. One that sits back and says either you're purchasing or you're leasing. Okay, once again, nothing too sophisticated. Now, what I did here was when I get into the code, all right, once again, if we sit back and we look at the main form, I'm doing a show dialog. I got my form lease or my form purchase. Let's go here and look at this. So what I did was I took my form purchase, which was form 1 before, and I renamed it to form purchase. I added a new form lease, and I added a new form main. All right. Now, what was interesting in that situation is that the startup of the form. How do I start it up? Meaning, I had a form purchase before, and that's what always started. Well, when I added these two other ones, how does it know to start on form main? So I want you to pay attention to this because every once in a while you're going to take an existing application and you might modify it, but you want to change the startup form. Right now, what I have here, I'm going to show you, it starts up with form main. Do you see that? When I say starts up, as soon as I execute the program, form main pops up. It was possible, based upon me doing this, that I enhanced this, and my original location, my original form may have been form purchase, which would have messed everything up. What do I need to do? I want you to go up to your project once again, do a right click, and you're going to go to properties. And you will see on properties what the startup form is. In this case here, it's form main. If I want to change that, I can pick one of the forms I start up with. So you might be asking, Bob, I'm not quite sure I'm following you. Well, let's just say I pick form purchase here. Now let's start up my application. See what happens? Form purchase pops up. My main form is nowhere to be found. That's not what I wanted. So it's going to default based upon the first form you put into your application. That's going to be the startup form. If for some reason you get into your application and realize, that wasn't what I wanted to start on this other form, to change that, you go to Solution Explorer, click on your project, right click, Properties, and it will bring you to this application area in your properties, and you will find the startup form. And what you want to do is pick the form that you actually want, and then it will now start up on that form. So I changed it back to form main, and here you go. All right. You may not run across that very often, but if you do, that's how you change it. All right. One more thing I want to show you while we're in here. Let's go look at some of this code again. So my form purchase, I already showed you. It's pretty same valid. It says I have validation and I do all the calculations. Form lease, if we look at it, I still have all these constraints up here, and I have a lot of things that you see here that have a lot of similarity to it. Okay. Does that bother you at all? That there's some similar. Now, my calculation, my monthly payment's totally different, but my subtotal, my calculating the tax, that's all the same. Okay? Does that bother you at all? As a programmer, you should say, well, it sort of does because it's the exact same code in both places. Is there a way that we can share that code on the multiple forms? And the answer is, of course, yes, there is. And we'll talk about that in the next video and show you an example of doing so. Okay? So, this particular video, all I really wanted you to do is see what an application might look like, a little bit more sophisticated application when it comes to multiple forms. And once again, it can get much more sophisticated based upon what you're doing. And I also wanted to show you how to make sure you're starting on the right form. So if you're writing your multiple form application, you press start, and next thing you know, a different form pops up than you were expected. Go to once again your project, right click, properties, and change the startup form. Okay, there you go.